Well, yeah, here you have it. My old cat and a young buck trying to make friends, but Oliver won't have anything to do with that. And we have today 2 typewriters that sort of duke it out. The Hermes 3000 from the 60s. People call it the curvy, the good one, the metal instead of the plasticky 70s one. And we'll be able to see them side by side today and have a little bit of a typing experience. See what happens with that. And then Eugene Ionesco was a French author who used the Hermes 3000, not sure which version. And he's sort of an absurdist writer, kind of like in the same line as Beckett. And we'll talk about all of that. Okay, so this is the Hermes 3000 that I purchased from a fellow who refurbishes them. So everything's done, the platen and everything. And it's, in very, very good shape and works quite well. This other one is an older version, and has not been refurbished. So as we compare and contrast, there is that difference. But both have fairly new ribbons, and so that's see, it'll stick. And it just isn't perfect that way. It is a nice tab that, it has kind of a lock on it where it won't slam. It's very, very calm. But sometimes and it's just the way it's designed. That's the way it happens. This is the same idea. Different color keys. Curvy. These have to come off. I borrowed this from my friend Katie Federley in the Twin Cities, and she was nice enough to let me use it. Okay, so well, that's funny because I hit the B, the B instead of the V twice. This must be a little different feel for me. Now, I've always found that this side, the amount that you need for an A is a little much on the Hermes, and Okay, I'll put it down a little bit. Ah, this is the way that a typewriter gets in my way. I just can't hit these keys right. It just doesn't work for me. And for some reason, and it's on the lowest setting. If I put it up higher, it sort of feels like I'm clawing my way out of a pit, but anyway. These are both Techno font, typeface, I should say, whatever. Mine is a Pica, which I prefer. But let's see if So while we take a close-up look at each of these hermes working, I'll try to talk about the author who used this machine, Eugene Ionesco. He was a Romanian who grew up in France, and so later in life he wrote in French. He came post-World War II, traumatized like everybody else, trying to find meaning in an absurd world, and his work is known as absurdist. And he was working at the same time as Samuel Beckett, who is a bit more famous in the States anyway. Most people have seen or heard of Waiting for Godot, which is a couple of guys waiting in this sort of wasteland, talking to each other over and over, and always come to the same conclusion: they can't leave because they're waiting for Godot. In the same way, Ionescu brings kind of the futility of life to bear. And he also can come at it in a very funny way. I found one of his plays made into a movie on YouTube. It's called Rhinoceros. And it stars Zero Mostel and Gene Wilder, and it is very, very absurd. But it takes an idea to some extreme to try and show the human condition, and in that particular case, the condition of authoritarianism taking over and people going along with it. So I put a link to the YouTube below. I think it's very timely. I'm going to read from a book now called Angels of Darkness, Dramatic Effect in Samuel Beckett, with special reference to Eugene Ionesco. It's by Colin Duckworth. He makes a distinction between the portrayal of death, or play acting, and the experience of death is a major theme in Tom Stoppard's Rosencrantz and Guildenstern Are Dead. And I've seen that play in a black box theater, and it is really good. So if you have a chance to see that play, go watch it. But he says in this Tom Stoppard play, you can see the influence of Beckett. The player says in his professional manner, "In our experience, most things end in death." Guildenstern turns on him scornfully, snatches a dagger from the player's belt, and holds it menacingly at his throat. "I'm talking about death," he says quietly, as the player backs away nervously. "And you've never experienced that, and you cannot act it. You die 1,000 natural deaths, with none of that intensity which squeezes out life. And no blood runs cold anywhere, because even as you die, you know you will come back in a different hat. But no one gets up after death. There is no applause, there is only silence and some second-hand clothes, and that's death." And then there's some action where he actually kills him on stage, and then he gets up because he's not actually dead. And Guildenstern insists at the end that he needs to distinguish between the moment of death and the state of death. Death is not anything. Death is not. It's the absence of presence, nothing more, the endless time of never coming back. The distinction, says the author, serves to illustrate the fundamental difference of emphasis to be found in the works of Ionescu and Beckett. Ionesco is concerned with, if that's not too lukewarm a term, the validity of selfhood at the moment of death, whereas Beckett lays stress on endless time. Or again, as Guildenstern neatly puts it, death followed by eternity, the worst of both worlds. For both the Irishman and the Romanian, the fact that the absurdity of life is eventually topped by the humiliation of death is a constant reminder of the fundamental meaninglessness of our acts, thoughts, and achievements. Before we finish up with this, there's a short poem in Romanian, which I don't know, so I Google translated. The little sun, God. God, I'm a leaf, I'm a nut, I'm a scared frog, I'm a wounded sparrow, they stole all my nests. I got all my slingshots. God, lift me up, make me happy, like oxen with innocent horns, like dogs with angel eyes, like an angel, like stones, friends. So to finish up, I think the difference between the old and the new Hermes 3000 is one sings a little bit higher. The 70s version has a higher voice, and it just sounds different. Have a listen.